Story 1. Worked as a cook at a Chili's in California, and I can say confidently that it was one of the cleanest kitchens I ever worked in. We scrubbed it spotless every night. Story 2. I used to work in the marketing team for a large recruitment company. About 99% of the jobs posted on their websites and shared on other websites are fake. The marketing and search engine optimization department was tasked with creating super optimized job listings that outperformed real job listings. To apply to these job listings, you would have to register an account. This would inflate our candidate database and we would have loads of resumes. The sales team would then take this information and contact companies to get them to pay to put their open vacancies on our websites because we had one of the largest candidate databases. I remember getting so annoyed by this practice, I started reporting these vacancies as fake, even on LinkedIn. But LinkedIn rejected my report, saying it was legitimate. It wasn't, and I know this because I created that fake vacancy. What makes this even more alarming is that so many recruitment companies do this. If you want to apply for a job, you are better off going to that company's website instead and not using a third party. I left that place and swore I would never work in recruitment again. Story 3. Nursing homes are always understaffed and overworked. The worst one I ever saw had 3 caregivers for 72 residents. That's 3 people responsible for feeding, toileting, and showering 72 individuals every day. Mistakes and abuse are incredibly common due to the sheer burnout that is rampant. Imagine being told after a 16-hour shift that you are not allowed to leave because of abandonment laws, and staying for another 16 hours because someone didn't show up for their shift, all while making barely above minimum wage. Edit. Because this gained attention and I assumed it would get overlooked, I live in Washington State. There are some exceptions, but here is some information on the abandonment laws nursing homes use to threaten workers. They rely on workers not knowing all the loopholes and exceptions. Story 4. Stanford University has a database full of everyone who has ever attended the school or been treated at their hospitals. With the right access, you can look up anyone in their system and see their employment history, every place they have lived since graduating, and their connections within the larger Stanford community. The best part is that there is a section that provides all the tax and income information, with an estimate based on equations that indicate how much the person could realistically donate to the school without a negative effect. That way, when they call to fundraise, they know exactly how much to ask for. Story 5. I worked for a very popular fast food chain and was shocked to find out their hygiene standards were actually high and everybody followed them. Like, everyone really did their job, and the place was really clean and safe. Story 6. I used to support restaurant point-of-sale systems. Every system managed and supported by us had the same administrator username and password for the computers, the admin software, back of house, and the credit card processing software. Also, their employee database file on the terminals was an Excel spreadsheet. It had their names, login numbers, addresses, dates of birth, phone numbers, social security numbers, etc. And you could use the aforementioned admin username and password to access them. They also outsource support to a country that dislikes the United States. As I trained them, they reminded me quite often how they don't like the United States. Story 7. I do not know the specifics, the laws and such, but the manager of the Amazon warehouse I was at was not allowed to tell workers they could not use the fans or air conditioning in these 100-degree-plus environments. However, he was allowed to shut off the fans and air conditioning whenever he wanted. So, this guy would spend the entire day, most days, following around anyone who would turn them on and personally turn them back off immediately. He was later fired on paper for telling people they could not use the fans and air conditioning, but really it was because the new district head just did not like him. Amazon had absolutely no problems with the guy shutting fans off. People had been sending in complaints about it for years, but never received any response. Story 8. My family owned veterinary hospitals. Now, I know the price has gotten high, but that is not what this post is about. Most veterinarians truly care, and I have seen some do anything, literally anything, to help your animal. I remember wanting to leave after closing, so tired, and my dad, the veterinarian, telling me he wasn't leaving yet. He wanted to sit with this one dog all night. Story 9. At the company I worked for, everyone was assigned a Microsoft account. This was used for Outlook emailing and Teams for instant messaging and video calls. Naturally, plenty of privileged and sensitive information was exchanged in these ways. Everyone had the same password. It was first name dot last name. Every employee and manager. I didn't have the courage to test the theory on an executive's account. And this was a company that, among other dull and boring trainings, made sure we had our required cybersecurity and anti-phishing training. There was lots more silliness at that company, but that right there tells you all you need to know. Story 10. Positive 1. It's a pretty small place, but Seattle Sutton's healthy eating was actually very serious about food safety and cleanliness and never refroze products. Ingredients arrived refrigerated, and any surplus would be frozen until needed for the next meal. If it was thawed out and still not used for the next cycle, it was thrown away or donated to local farmers. They had no issue with pulling food off the line and even discarding entire batches if something was off. She tried franchising once, but none of the new locations could maintain her personal quality and safety standards, so she shut it down after about 18 months, even though she was making good money from it. Seattle herself was also very nice, and all her grandkids worked summers there through high school and college, coming in and working hard instead of being the arrogant hires so many nepotism hires are. Story 11. We used to own a couple of gyms. I guarantee you that your membership can be canceled without all the nonsense. Most of them just try to squeeze every single thing they can get out of you. Story 12. As a former compliance director for telehealth mental health agencies, I would urge people to run from agencies like BetterHelp, Talkspace, Charlie Health, Guideline Healthcare, LE Health, etc. These are started by technology corporations and other profit-driven corporations and have little interest in protecting you, whether it's your mental health, confidentiality, or ethically driven care. These places are unacceptable and have low-quality treatment providers. You are best to find a local mental health agency or individuals on Psychology Today. Story 13. It is very difficult for Intercontinental Hotels Group to remove hotels from the portfolio if they are paying their dues and are midlife cycle. They can be very bad hotels, and there is nothing that can be done except in some rare life-threatening situations. Some hotels have consistently failed every quality evaluation for years but will remain in the system because, at the end of the day, they make money for the company no matter how much they harm the brand name. Marriott International can do it a bit more easily for non-compliant hotels due to the structure of the quality department being through a third party. Story 14. This was about 20 years ago. When I worked in a call center at Sprint, our calls would get recorded, and we would receive an email that included a link to where we could review a transcript of our call. This transcript included the 3 pieces of personally identifiable information needed to access someone's account. Well, the email they sent to us used a parameter ID that was simply a number to reference our transcript. Basically, it would be www.internalcompanyWebsite.com/transcripts?ID =1234567 If you changed the number, you would get someone else's transcript and the 3 pieces of personally identifiable information. I figured that was a pretty big security hole, but at least I had to access it from my personal office computer so they'd see who did it, unless you went to the break room where you could access it there. Seeing how I was just out of college and wanted to get a software engineering job, I brought this up to management, who proceeded to do nothing. I left a couple of months later for a software engineering job. I discovered a massive security flaw in Sprint's call center. Story 15. Bed Bath & Beyond had a severe issue with employee abuse and sexual harassment from the top down, which was often ignored. If an employee sought legal assistance, the company would temporarily relocate the manager or supervisor, only to eventually fire or pressure the employee to quit. They would cut hours claiming budget constraints, even though only one employee was affected. I'm glad they're out of business. I remember a time when only managers, not supervisors, were allowed to open the door after hours to let us out. We were forced to stay on the clock to clean up and such. That changed when a girl had a severe panic attack, apparently leading to a cardiac episode. We kept calling for the manager, but no help came. Emergency services were called and informed that we were locked in during a medical emergency. They arrived before the door was opened, clearly seeing the employee in distress. The door was finally unlocked when the police arrived with the paramedics. The manager received a strict reprimand from the police, and a detailed report was filed. The paramedics believed she was having a heart attack, and she was taken away with lights and sirens. Bed Bath & Beyond got into significant trouble. I am happy to report the employee was fine after treatment. She successfully sued the company, as I heard, and other employees who filed suits for false imprisonment also won their cases. An absolutely horrible company to work for. Story 16. Harbor Freight tools are perfect for a homeowner or someone who needs a tool for occasional or moderate use. However, if you use it often or need it for work, get the premium tools or go with Ryobi or another big brand. About 90% of everything there is fine and is made in the same factories in China, and a lot of it is a copy of another brand. Story 17. As a former teacher, classrooms are 20% learning and 80% behavior management. If you are wondering why kids cannot read, it is because we could barely get a word in to teach them. Story 18. I have worked for Bank of America and Wells Fargo, and both banks mistreat customers constantly. However, there is a difference in how and why they do it. Bank of America will mistreat you because they are huge and disorganized, and no one has a clue what is going on. Customers are mistreated when employees do not know how to do their job, and no one knows how to fix it when things go wrong. Wells Fargo will mistreat you, and they know exactly what they are doing and how they are going to do it. They will intentionally design a process to take too long, forcing the customer to pay additional fees. Story 19. Walgreens is currently imploding. The workers are trying their best, but they are quitting in droves due to depression. Management is gaslighting, saying, "Everyone else can handle this work, only you can't." They are trying to make them work harder and faster for no extra pay and with less manpower every day. Story 20. Dozens of things are stolen from every single Walmart, every single day. And the cares given by management about it are very few and far between. Edit. They like to pretend otherwise, but in reality, management actively jokes about how much was stolen day to day. What they say to everyone else and what they say behind the scenes doesn't remotely match up. Story 21. In the 70s, we had Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips in the United States, and I, at 16, had to sign a non-disclosure agreement stating I wouldn't reveal the secret ingredient. It was peanut oil. Boy, I hope the statute of limitations is in effect. Story 22. I used to work in college admissions in the United States. This is technically not a secret, but it isn't advertised either. Most colleges and universities in the United States are not need-blind, meaning they take your financial status into consideration when choosing to admit or reject you. They will spin this as we give scholarships to those who need them, which is true for a very small number of students. However, it is much more common for them to admit a student who can pay full tuition over a student who cannot. Story 23. For years, we manufactured and processed thousands of components incorrectly, which substantially increased the probability of sudden and catastrophic failure. The component, well, it is the main attachment point for various missiles and bombs for the United States military. I discovered this shortly after starting work there. I notified the operations manager, who ignored it. I notified the president, who acknowledged it but refused to address it or notify the customer. Finally, I notified the ownership, who promptly had me replaced. Story 24. I worked for a very expensive hotel in an even more expensive area. I watched many people cheat on their spouses and spend copious amounts of money on foolish things. Yes, I saw you vomit on the steps and walk away. Yes, I know you just engaged in inappropriate behavior in our public restroom. Staff absolutely do steal lost items, and others are counting down the 60 days so they can take your forgotten items home legally. No, I cannot watch your kids while you go out wine tasting. I am well aware of the prostitute you snuck out. She is a regular in the area, and we are on a first-name basis. And yes, I do know where you can buy illegal drugs, but I am not telling. You are being overcharged and upsold on everything. We were trained to do it while lying to your face about discounts and deals. Also, all hotels hate third parties. Most of your extra charges are actually from them. We could have given you a better discount if you asked. They make us hide the real price you pay when you check in with lots of restrictions. We do match prices, but not in the busy season. The third party we hate the most is Groupon because they genuinely slashed our prices by 75% or more, and the people that tended to use them always trashed our rooms and stole things like lamps and televisions. Not that our owners or managers care. And yes, the staff is extremely underpaid for the jobs they do when the company is more than capable of paying them more. Story 25. A lot of the stuff you donate to Goodwill goes straight into the garbage. No, the clothes are not washed before going to the sales floor, and most of the items are not cleaned. Please be careful and clean or disinfect if you decide to purchase them. Yes, they are raising prices to give more to the higher-ups while not giving anything to the people actually doing all of the work. Goodwill pays disabled employees significantly less than minimum wage. Most of the nice stuff that you donate is going to e-commerce to be sold at an inflated auction price and not to a local person who might want it. No, the sales or donation associate cannot give you a receipt with a cash value for all of the junk that you just threw in the bin, so stop asking. The receipt just shows a rough estimate of what you donated. It is up to you to determine the value of your donation if you are that much of a tax rat. No, you cannot sell anything to Goodwill. That is not what the word donation means. Yes, this is all somehow legal,